My name is Melinda, and I work on the Lake Monticello Wildlife Committee. And we'd like to welcome Sharon Cole and Jack Day today, who are master naturalists who have been trained by the Department of Wildlife Resources, and they're going to deliver a fascinating presentation on the black bears of Virginia. Before we begin, I'd like to point out that we have some applications from the National Wildlife Federation if you'd like to certify your own property or just get more information. So please be sure to pick up an application before you go, okay?
So hi, yeah, I'm Jack Day. I have previously been on the Wildlife Committee and stay in touch with them, and I've more recently become a master naturalist. And as Melinda was saying, some of the master naturalists have gone through a training that is done by the Department of Wildlife Resources. This is their program, their presentation to try to educate people about black bears. I've had a couple of incidents that when the slide comes to the right point, I can tell you about some anecdotes of things that I've encountered. For me, my interest in wildlife really, I think, came from summers up in Canada where my dad was raised. And, being able to look out the window at a lake and see all sorts of wildlife. I think I probably saw a bald eagle there in Canada before I saw one in the U.S. So that's some of my background and my interest in wildlife. And now I'll let Sharon tell her story.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. And I have never been here before. I'm blown away by your community. It is beautiful. I cannot believe that you have the amenities that you have, and you have a whole resource team filming, and I'm waiting for hair and makeup. Are they coming? Like, unbelievable. So we're double mic'd, so hopefully everyone can hear. Please let us know if you can't. Just a little bit about me. I live just outside of Charlottesville off the Ivy exit, and it's just a big neighborhood. But my property is the very last home in the neighborhood, and so we back up against the mountain. And I learned that we had bear the first weekend that I moved in. I put in a big shepherd's hook in the ground so I could feed my birds, because I'm a big bird feeder. And then we moved in and moved away and come back a week later, and my shepherd's hook was at a 45-degree angle, not in the ground, but half of it had been bent at a 45-degree angle. And my first thought was, well, those guys who cut my grass were just really disrespectful. So I went to Ivy Nursery to buy a new bird feeder, and I was telling my story about this bird feeder, and they're like, we have bears. So that was my introduction to them, and since I've had a privilege of seeing a lot of black bear, they seem to want to go through my property, not really to my property, but through it, and so we've had quite a few fun experiences. So that's me. Just thrilled to be here. Our goal is to tell you something about black bears, to talk to you about what the Department of Wildlife Resources in Virginia does to manage them, and to talk a little bit about human-bear conflicts and how we can avoid them. Please feel free to interrupt if you have questions, concerns, whatever, but I think if you can hold tight, you'll see that we answer most. So what kind of bears do we have in Virginia? Black bears. Which seems obvious, but evidently there was a survey conducted of adults in Virginia, and more than 60% of people did not know that black bears were the only native bears in Virginia. But black bears come in a variety of colors. You can see them to be cinnamon, brown, blonde, blue, and white. Here in Virginia, though, we only see the cinnamon and the brown as babies, usually up till the time that they're yearlings, and then at that point their fur begins to change and they become black. And I will just insert, I mean, they are black. They are black. I often will look up into the woods and I'll think, oh, is that a bear? And I watch it for a while and it doesn't move, it's a tree stump. And then I see a bear a week later and I'm like, that is the black of a black bear. It is, it's black. I've never seen any other color, but I would be okay if I did. So black bear history, their scientific name is Ursus americanus. They are native to Virginia. In 1607, they were thought to be nearly statewide, and then we decided to hunt them into almost extinction in the 1900s. The only population that was left was in the Dismal Swamp and the far western mountains. They're coming back. They're healthy now. We have created harvest regulations. We have protected habitat. They are now a game species from the 1930s on, and they have made a remarkable recovery. Before I go any further, I meant to ask, by show of hands, who has seen a black bear in Virginia? Oh, awesome. By show of hands, how many have seen black bear here in Lake Monticello? Okay.
So the current black bear range in Virginia, the green indicates that they're can be fairly regularly seen, and as you can tell, it's virtually all the entire state. As you get out right at the coast and right by the peninsula, their sightings of bear there might be a little more rare. So basically, we live in bear territory. That's basically the message there. And yeah, we want to have the bears. We want them out in their natural setting, but it's best for them and for us if they're not coming too much into areas that have been heavily developed for humans. The general idea is that prevention of those things and prevention of them getting into what we would consider to be inappropriate areas is a lot easier to prevent than it is to mitigate after the fact. So the bears have habitat requirements that are important for us to understand. Like almost all animals, they need food, water. They want to be able to have places to escape and feel safe. And they want sites to have a den to raise their young. As you can see on the screen, their ideal habitat is mast-producing trees. And we'll get more into what mast means. It's like kind of food sources for them. And those types of food sources would be things like acorns, beech nuts, berries, fruit, grapes. And on the table there afterward, you can look, and we have a notebook that on the cover has the bear calorie count, where you can see how many calories they get from each of their food sources. And bears can weigh up above 500 pounds, so they have to eat a lot of those things in order to keep healthy and keep their weight up. 75% of what they eat are vegetative things, like the nuts and the fruits and things like that we were just mentioning. 25% comes from insects, small animals, maybe carrion, because generally bears are not good hunters. So they mostly don't eat animals, and when they do, they're small and easy for them to catch. So we have the importance of fall foods. Bears may gain 2 pounds per day late summer through the fall. So they're needing to eat a lot. They need high energy foods with carbs and fats. And the most important fall foods are the acorns. So in good mast years, in other words, years when there's a lot of acorns and similar things for them to eat, they may double their body weight between August and December. In years where there aren't a lot of natural acorns and other mast diet foods, it impacts their survival and their reproduction. It also is more likely to bring them near humans because they're not getting the food out in the wild, so they go looking for it where they can, and they go looking for it where we might be putting opportunities out for them. And the types of things that they might come into would be crop fields like sweet corn, peaches, cherries, apples. So if they're not getting their preferred acorns at enough, that's when they start to come into the human environment. And as you can see, they can be pretty determined if they're trying to get food.
Bears are in all of the eastern states except for Rhode Island and Delaware. In Virginia, they are in every county. There have been sightings in every county. So by living in Virginia, you live in bear country. Actually, on the western mountains, this is the largest contiguous population, bear population in the east. So our greatest populations are in the Dismal Swamp and in the Blue Ridge Mountains and Allegheny Mountains. The Department of Wildlife Resources in Virginia has a management plan for bears as it does for most every wildlife species. The population objectives are based on not on a particular number, but whether or not they want to increase the population, decrease the population, or keep them stable. You can see that in the 2017 to 2021 bear population objectives, they were trying to decrease bears along the western corridor, increase bears here, and keep stabilized in sort of the central part of the state and down here. The newest one, the newest bear population management plan has just come out in 2023 for 2032. And you can see that their efforts have been very productive because we're now in a stabilized throughout the entire state, except for here in the southwest corner of the state. They would like to decrease them a little bit. This population management plan is created with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of input from a lot of different people. This is a little bit of a busy slide, but let me just talk you through two important things. There is the cultural, I have to look it up myself. The cultural carrying capacity is basically how many bears will you all tolerate in your neighborhood? And then there is the biological carrying capacity, and that's how many bears can live within your habitat. As you can imagine, more bears can live in your habitat than what you might be comfortable with. So there are always concerns about the historical perspective. They were here before we were here. Maybe we should let them stay or come back. There's hunting is a common thing with dogs and bears, and people want to see bears. I mean, who among us doesn't want to go to Shenandoah National Park and see a bear? Like, not up close, but like see a bear from your car or over the bluff or something. So there's a lot of things that the Department of Wildlife Resources has to take into account when they make their decisions about the population. So the bear population is really tracked through harvesting of bears. And as you can see, 2001 to 2009, the bear population was increasing rather significantly. Since 2009, the bear population has been stable. Human-bear conflicts. So it's kind of cute. I'm not going to lie. To see a bear in a little baby's swimming pool, but you don't want that. So human-bear conflicts is a bit of a personal perspective. If a bear comes into your backyard, you may find it to be very cool, or you may get very scared. And so, you know, what constitutes a conflict is a personal thing. As you can see here, there's a similarity. That's a dumpster, cornfields, honey from bees, beehives, big trash dump. There's a theme. Do you have bears in your backyard? Maybe you don't see a bear in your backyard. We know you're in bear country, but maybe you'll see things that tell you there's a bear in your backyard. This is a plastic sample of bear scat, is what I'm going to call it. And as you can see, it's quite large. Think golden retriever on steroids, kind of big, tubular poop. But it doesn't always look like this. So it depends on when you see the bear. If it's right after they've been denned and they're eating a lot of grasses because no berries are available, you're going to see formed tubes. Is this too much? If it's in the summertime and there's berries around and they're eating a lot of fruit and berries, it's going to be a flop, like a cow. It's just, yeah, it's a flop. You get it. So bears are driven by their appetites, as Jack was talking about. In the fall, they're in this phase of hyperphagia. That's what it's called. It means eat, 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 eat. And I honestly, I'm kind of going to that mode as well, not being a bear, but from Thanksgiving until New Year's, I'm kind of like eat, 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 eat. But bears eat up to 20,000 calories a day. So think about, on that notebook over on the table, it tells you how they could get 20,000 calories through eating little tiny acorns and little tiny blueberries, pounds and pounds and thousands. Or they can go to your bird feeder. And at your bird feeder, if you have that black oil sunflower seeds that you love to give because the cardinals love it, 7 pounds of that is all they need. So think about that. When you're putting that in your bird feeder, what you're doing, you're telling that bear, you don't need to work. You don't need to forage. Just come to my backyard. I got you. Bear calls. So as Virginia has become more and more populated, more and more bear calls have been received. The largest number of bear calls seem to come from here, which is Albemarle, Nelson. So you're right in here, not a lot of bear calls. Now that tells me one of many things. You don't have a lot of bear. You have the bear, but you're keeping your food sources in, so there's no conflicts. Or you're just really chill about bears and you're not like, no, I see a bear. Like most of the calls they tell us that they get are people just reporting, I saw a bear in the neighborhood. Okay. But it's alarming, you know, it's a wild animal, it's alarming.
So before you change it,
Yeah.
I just want people, remember these two slides, because I'll comment about them, the bear climbing to a deck and climbing out around a dumpster.
The Department of Wildlife Resources does have a conflict management plan, and it focuses on education and outreach. It does technical assistance for people who want help setting up electric fences for their beehives or their orchards. It helps them with on-site aversive conditioning, which means do something that's annoying to the bear that will stop them doing what they're doing and make them not want to come back for that food source. And that would be a paintball gun, electric fence, or a rubber buckshot. That's what they tell us. The last step is a humane dispatch. Now I'm going to let your minds know what that really means. It's a very kind way. It's very rare, and we'll talk about that next. Why relocation is not an option. I thought that's what they did with bears. And when I first moved here, I thought, well, if the bear becomes aggressive or a problem, I'll call Department of Wildlife Resources. They'll come, they'll trap that little bear, and they'll take it to Shenandoah National Park, and he'll live his life. Well, no, they don't do that. The reason is bears are territorial. And so If you take a bear and insert it into another bear's territory, it is not going to end well for the bear. If you take a bear and relocate it, their range can be up to 100 miles. So they will try to return back to where they came from. And oftentimes they meet a car, and they get killed along the road. So it's not a good option. Habituation is when the bears have become accustomed to people, and that's okay. You don't want them to, shake your hand. It's okay if they see you and they just move along. Food conditioned, though, is when they begin to associate people with food. And then food conditioned and habituated is when there's a strong positive association and they're not afraid to approach. And that is what you want to avoid. But that is what you begin to nibble away at doing every time a bear comes and gets into your trash, or gets into your bird feeder, or gets into, like, you have people coming to work on your house. You have a dumpster outside. What do the workmen do? They throw their leftover lunch into the dumpster. I had a group of guys working on our house, and they brought a microwave oven. I did not know this. And they plugged it in on my front porch, and they were making some great lunches. And the bear came. So you just have to be really thinking about the bear's sense of smell is like, I don't know, 1,000 times better than ours, or in 1,000 times better. It's their greatest sense, and so they can smell things out a long distance away.
So there's a program that the DWG has. It's called BearWise, and their website that you guys can go to is bearwise.org. It has a lot of information like what we're going to be telling you. It has some great activities for families. So this is a long legal statement. Basically, the nutshell is it's illegal to feed bears. Unintentionally, you're not supposed to be doing that. So that's basically what that long legal statement is saying. In order to avoid feeding bears, and the main thing is to remove or secure potential food sources. Now, the ones I think that here at the lake would be, garbage. Those of us who are fortunate enough to have garages to put our trash bins in, that's what you do. Hopefully there are some good ways for those without garages to be able to get them secure. Bird feeders basically should be taken down between, I think it's April and November. There'll be a slide that will pinpoint that more precisely. One of the things I like to participate in for Master Naturalists is I like to do feeder watch, where I have a feeder up and I watch, record, and send the data off to Cornell of the birds that I've seen. I have learned they only have that program running from November to March. After that, they don't have people sending any data. Then the reason for that, they don't want people having bird feeders up, for reasons like this. So here's a picture of a bear that can climbing a tree where he might be able to access a deck. You remember one of the pictures that I told you to pay attention to, where the bear was actually climbing up on the deck. Well, I have two bird feeders that I've been watching. One's in my front yard, and just yesterday I had a big cake woodpecker food, seed cake out. And yesterday was the first day where the birds were coming around. There wasn't anything left of it. I'm not going to put a fresh cake up because it's getting too close to April. I've got another feeder that I have attached to a window that looks out on our deck. And I think, okay, that's good, but hey, gee, I know that the bears can climb, so I probably should take that in soon too. Then I saw the picture in the presentation of that bear climbing right over the rail. Yeah, I will be, in a couple of weeks, taking that feeder down too. And, and frankly, that's one of the reasons why we timed this presentation to be about now, to send the message, hey folks, if you enjoy feeding the birds and have bird feeders, that's great. You want to consider taking them down pretty soon. The other two things on this list that might be pertinent would be if you're putting food out for your pet outdoors, be aware that can attract them. And grills, the smell of food on our grills, so you probably want to either bring in or clean your grills. The most important way to minimize human-bear conflicts is to keep garbage away from bears. There was that other one picture that I told you to remember where a bear was on top of a fairly, a pretty substantial commercial dumpster. We have any fans of funniest home videos in the group? A few weeks ago they had one, oh yeah, this is funny. Guy went to one of those big dumpsters. He lifts up the top of the dumpster to toss his bag in, and out popped a black bear. Yeah, hilarious, guys. This is something with, many animals, you learn if animals are getting somewhere that you don't want them to be, you want to learn what it is that might be attracting them and do something about those attractants. I remember watching a program where they were talking about the rat problem that New York City has. Well, guess what they do in New York? Once a week, people take their black trash bags and put them out on the sidewalk to be collected. And they made the comment, they can do whatever trapping and poisoning or whatever they want. They are not going to solve their rat problem until they stop doing that, until they start having their trash go in these more secure containers. So some of the ways to secure your garbage is put it in a building. Like I say, those of us who are fortunate enough to have a garage, that pretty much case solved. They've got some fairly substantial ways you can secure. I don't know how well any of those would work here at the lake. But, that's just something for people to consider. So it's April to November. You don't want your bird feeders to be up because in April they're coming out of their dens and they're hungry. And in November they're trying to fatten themselves up for being more dormant through the winter months. And as we were saying, if you're feeding your pets, you want to be careful about leaving your pet food out where bears and other critters might get used to that as a food source. Now, these next few things probably won't relate too much to Lake Monticello. We're not having orchards and crops, but any of you who might be involved in some of that outside the lake might be aware. Other agricultural damage prevention. Some of you may do beekeeping outside of the lake. If you are, you want to note the things that you can do to protect your beehives. So the main message on this slide is that bears and other animals, they're learners, and they learn over time what places that they can go, good places to eat. And so if you want to be keeping diligent about periodically checking and just not trying to keep the animal from repeatedly seeing something that would cause them to be attracted. Just try to not have them learn your food sources as good sources. I've got a couple of stories I can relate, but this one says, do not run. Okay. There was a time, as said, I, took summers up in Canada. There was one time I'm driving down the road and it looked like there was a black Labrador retriever running down the road in front of us. So I looked down at the speedometer, 35 miles an hour. Well, that pooch is making pretty good time. Then the animal turned sideways to go into the woods. I said, that is not a dog. That was a black bear going 35 miles an hour, which, do the math, that is faster than a 2-minute mile. So yeah, if you're thinking about running, maybe imagine Clint Eastwood whispering in your ear, yeah, you feel lucky? So if you do see a bear and it has not seen you, you want to calmly leave the area. And something that isn't in this slide, but that I've heard is, if you're walking in the woods where there might be bears present, you want to make some noise. You don't want to be super quiet because you don't want the bear to be surprised. If they know that you're around, they will most likely keep their distance. But if you surprise them, that's when, I better just kind of slowly back away, not run away and look like I'm prey, As you're moving away, you make noise, you try to make yourself look as big as possible. That's a challenge for me, but you do what you can,
Bear in the neighborhood, what do? Stay away from the bear. They're fun to look at, but just know that when you approach the bear is scared. The bear wants to run away, and it won't if you're standing right there. Don't chase it, don't corner it. Just leave and wait at nightfall. It will come back down from the tree if it's in a tree, and it will find its way. It's fine, it doesn't need you. It's hard to resist because they're really beautiful to see, but just let law enforcement, if they come, control what's happening and be respectful of the wild animal. And how cute is that? Oh my gosh. I've never seen a cub here in the wild. And you want to scoop it up because it looks like it's an orphan and you think, oh, its mama is gone and I need to save it. Don't pick it up. Most times cubs are not orphaned. They look like they are, but mama leaves them when she goes to feed. Usually she'll chase them up a tree. But sometimes you get these little rebellious boogers that come out and they just come down onto the ground. Leave it in place, call the Department of Wildlife Resources. They can come and check it out a few hours later. If there's a carcass nearby of mama, then it's been abandoned. But again, best not to pick it up. Let the Department of Wildlife Resources take care of it. True or false? One of the most dangerous encounters is getting between a mother black bear and her cubs. Oh, ooh. Now here's the interesting thing about these slides that they presented to us. They don't tell us what the most dangerous encounter is, but from the readings that I've done, I'm going to venture a guess. Don't hold me to this. I think the most dangerous is when you get between a bear and its food source. The reality is that black bear mothers, as we just talked about, chase their babies up the tree. Up they go. If you see a mother black bear and cubs, even though if it's not the most dangerous, it's still dangerous. give them space, be quiet, retreat slowly. And again, if you see a cub, let it alone. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we already discussed, which is how to scare bears if you feel the need to scare them. Air horns, bear spray, paintball guns, non-lethal rubber rounds, slingshot. Who here has a slingshot? I'm sorry. You do? I want to talk to you, meet you afterwards. You do? Okay, I want you to be living near me. Motion sprinklers and light or an alarm. And the idea again is to just get them to associate that noxious noise with whatever behavior it is they're doing, like eating from your garbage can.
So black bears can have mange, and the symptoms that you would see for mange would be itching, hair loss, crusty skin. Late stage mange, they're actually emaciated, and they have a loss of their normal awareness and their normal fear responses. So if you see a bear with mange, and it's safe to do so, take a picture, submit the report to the Wildlife Conflict Helpline, and you may ask, so what is that number? Well, it's on this, let's see, in the orange highlight there at the bottom. And there are copies of this slide that are that are included in the literature that's on the table. If you want to have these contact numbers, we've already talked about Bearwise, bearwise.org. So this one, being a cat person, this is my favorite picture of the whole presentation. We got the little house cat and has chased the bear up the tree. Yeah, we're going to open it up for questions. I just wanted to make one comment that one of the people that was pictured at the on that slide is Katie Martin, and she was one of the people from Department of Wildlife that trained me, and I believe Sharon thinks that she also was one of the people training her. And an article that was in the Flavanna Review this week, written by Paige, also has a quote from Katie. So.
Before we go to questions, if I may, just two comments. One was a slide that they provided us about bird feeders and not to feed birds between November and April. And again, I'm a huge bird feeder lover. I just want to share a story with you that those dates are a little iffy. So bears do not all den at the end of November. Mama bears will den to give birth. Adult males will then go in and den, and then the younger males will den. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes if there's a good food year, they may stay out and roam or sleep for a little bit and get up for a little bit. Just 3 weeks ago, February 16th, at my house was a big black bear on my trail cam, walking, so he's not denning. He didn't get the memo. December 15th, 2 years ago, I had a bear swat a suction cup bird feeder, like a window bird feeder, 6 feet off the ground, swatted it down. And I only know that he did that. Again, I don't learn very well. I did put a bird feeder up, but I thought I was safe because it was December. And when I saw it down in the morning, I thought, oh, the cold air messed with the suction cup. I must do a better job. There was no seed, no, little tiny seeds, none. Didn't register. And I went to put the feeder back up again with more bird feed. And there on the side of my house, a huge bear paw print. So I don't do that anymore. But so just be careful. Those dates are kind of iffy. The other real quick thing was about trash cans, and it doesn't sound like you all have a problem here, and we're not trying to, shame you to make sure that your trash is locked up with all kinds of locks and cables. Right. If it becomes a problem, something that I know other neighborhoods have done is they've talked to their trash collectors to ask whether they can come a little bit later in the morning so that they have time before they go to work or head to school to take their trash out then. In my neighborhood, the trash cans are picked up at 5 a.m. And people do not want to get up at 4:30 to put their trash cans out. And the people who have private service in my area also were told by the companies they will not empty the trash if they have the locks on them. So you just have to check with your own people to see if it's a problem.
Yeah, that's why I didn't make a big deal of those locking mechanisms, because I don't think they'd be permitted. I don't think they'd be able to collect the trash with those here. So, oh, I do have my own bird feeder bear encounter thing. I used to have 2 poles in the front yard, and one morning I come out and both of those poles had been flattened to the ground. They were perfectly neatly parallel to each other, and the bird feeder with the seed was still there. And I'm thinking, I don't think anybody around here would be, doing mischief. I don't know, but it seemed like it was probably a bear. Okay, and then a couple of weeks later, there was a picture in the Daily Progress of someone in Crozet with the bear, and he's reaching up and he's pulling a bird feeder down with one paw. And I thought, well, duh, I know how strong these guys are. And then it's like, okay, he stood between the 2 poles, pulled them down. One of those poles had broken. So that pole snapped, which caused him to fall on the other one and press it all the way to the ground. Startled him, so he ran off without the food. Case solved, Watson, Okay, so with those things said.
Raise your hand if you have questions and I'll come to you.
What does a den look like? And are there certain hours of the day that bears roam?
Ooh, good question. What do dens look like? In the western part of the state, dens are typically under rock outcroppings, just like what you would think of as a bear den. In this area, most of the dens are under fallen trees, where they will just dig out a little area. They can get into very tiny places because they don't have shoulders like we have, so they can fold in under. They will go under decks, under porches. Yeah, and then the other question was, when do they roam? So there's this wonderful word called crepuscular, and it means that you're active between dusk and dawn. And when I moved here, I held on to that, and I was like, okay, we have bear, but they have the night and I have the day, and that is not true. But primarily, that's when they roam, between evening and morning. Any other questions?
I seen a bear when I went to after I went to the doctor's in a tree.
Yep, they are really good. So you saw a bear near a dump climbing a tree. Yep, they're attracted to food sources like that, and they are great climbers. Absolutely.
Can bears hold things?
Yes. Well, we saw in some of those pictures where they would climb up and they will hold on to the bird feeders. They hold on to the trunks of the trees as they go up. They can open car doors. Yeah, they can open dumpsters that aren't bear-safe dumpsters. They're very clever.
How about leaving food in your car?
Oh, don't do it. No. Yeah, I've seen photos on the internet of a bear that got in a car and just shredded the upholstery trying to get out, like frantic. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, when I was too young to take a long trip, my family went out to Yellowstone, and that would have been the early '60s, when they were still letting visitors like feed the bears and all of that. They've become much more enlightened since. And my folks came back and related a story that there were some people that were feeding oranges out their window to a bear. And then when they were done with that, they said, okay, feeding time's over. They rolled up their windows and they went off. And my family could see the bear at the back door of the station wagon trying to rip the door off the back of the station wagon. So yeah.
Do you have any updates on those 3 little bear cubs that are on rescue?
Update on the little tiny bear cubs that were
Yes.
rescued?
Actually, the person who might have an update is sitting right here. Do you?
From what I understand, there is if you go back to the article in the Fluvanna Review, there is a place in there where you can go and watch or get information from the Wildlife Center on an ongoing basis on how the cubs are doing and what will be happening to them. The last I knew, they're going to try to find a mother to take the cubs. But if that doesn't happen, because this year they did not have enough mothers. And that may be because of the acorns, or maybe they didn't get enough, but that's what's happening. So if you check out the Wildlife Center and look up the 3 bear cubs, you might be able to find that information. It is in the Fluvanna Review. It was the week before last, I think, yeah. And if you look that up, you can go in the archives and look up wildlife or feature articles, and you'll see down there that I put the link to it, and you can find out more about the bear cubs, what's happening.
Thank you.
I would like to just make a comment though about mama bears. So an interesting little fun fact is that bears mate in the summer, and the mama doesn't, the egg does not implant. I'm trying to be careful. Until the fall, until she decides to chase away her yearlings. And if she doesn't, then the egg does not implant. Or if she does not get enough food and has not gotten enough body fat, then the egg will not implant. But there's a very long period of time from mating until fertilization, or implantation, I should say. Fun fact. How long do bears live? Oh, that's a good question while I'm getting to you. How long do bears live? Do you want to take that? Do you know?
I don't know.
So I went to a ranger talk up in the Shenandoah Mountains at the national park, and they said that bears can live, 15 years or so, but the average is less than 10 years. And only a quarter of the cubs live to adulthood because they're taken by coyote or other creatures. Oh, you have a question. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you both for a very interesting and spot-on program. I spent my career as a National Park Ranger in the West, and I spent over 30 years in the mountains in California dealing with bears. And I would just like to emphasize the problems involved with getting bears habituated to humans as a source of food. There's a saying that we in the Park Service use with the public, is a fed bear is a dead bear. And if you think back to the slide that was shown where the sequence of how to deal with bears or manage bears, and in descending order on that slide means more severe consequences for a bear. And it starts with being habituated to food. And I've been involved in all of those, including the trapping, euthanizing bears, and it's no fun. And it all starts with their getting used to humans as a source of food. The problem is not the bear, it's the humans.
We should have had you up there.
No.
Right?
I just wanted to
It's
reinforce.
true. It's true. It sounds like we're scolding, like, don't feed the birds and keep your trash away. But really, truly, that is where it all starts. We get the bears accustomed to providing them high-calorie foods and they realize and they can come to us. They talk about backpackers, like if you have food in your backpack and you see a bear, your inclination is to take the backpack off and throw it, like, here, take it. But what did you just teach that bear? Those backpacks have food in them.
How many cubs can a male bear have?
That's a really good question. You guys ask really good questions. So the mama bears have the babies, and with some help from Dad, and we're not going to go into that, but they have 1 to 4 cubs. So sometimes it's usually not that many. It's usually 1 to 2. And as this woman, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name when you gave us the update on the baby bears.
Oh, Paige Gifford.
Paige, thank you. What Paige was describing was when they find orphan cubs, they will put them in a den with a mother, and they're very good surrogate parents. They will take that baby in when the babies are little enough, but not once mamas come out necessarily. So they have quite a few cubs, but again, not very many of them make it to adulthood because they get, abandoned or hit or whatever. Let's end on a really positive note.
How long do bears gestate? How long does it take to have the baby?
Gestation?
It's a few months, isn't it?
It's very short.
Yeah.
It's amazingly short. I don't know the exact number. I should. I'll look that up. But so mamas go into the den like November, and their babies are born in January. They're hairless, blind, deaf, tiny, like a russet potato kind of size. Yeah. I want to thank you all for being here. This was so wildly fun, and your wildlife committee is the bomb, and as is your neighborhood.